Your innovation package gives businesses more capacity to poach good people from overseas, and it will also allow some foreign students to stay in Australia rather than take the skills they acquire back home. What do you say to Australians who might bristle a bit at that and think, well, hang on, they're taking Australian jobs?
Well, that's not right, actually. You know, in the ICT area and postgraduate tech, if you like, computing sciences and so forth, at universities, over 3/4 of the students studying here are foreigners. So, you know, we don't have enough Australians studying ICT. We don't have enough Australians, particularly Australian girls and women, studying STEM subjects and computing-related subjects generally. So we are in a world where the most valuable capital is human capital. And that's why it's very important to be able to retain our best brains, to create an environment where they can grow businesses and try things out, use their imagination and innovation, and also be attractive for talented people from other parts of the world, whether they're students here or not.
You mentioned girls and women. There was, I think, 13 million to go towards the greater participation of women in science and maths areas. That sounds pretty general and nebulous. I mean, what specifically would that $13 million be spent on? Well,
it's all to do with programs and awareness, and it's a really, you put your finger on actually one of the biggest challenges we face. So we don't have enough Australians studying technology, studying maths, studying science, studying computing science. The percentage of women, of girls, studying maths, for example, for their final year of high school, has been declining. It's lower now.
You've got 13 million to change that, so how exactly are you going to?
By creating more awareness, showing greater, showing role models. So a lot of mentoring is part of that. You'll find that one of the things a lot of schools are doing now is finding role models, women who are doing well in technology companies. You know, Miley Carnegie, who's the head of Google here, is of course a great example. There are many others, and so that girls understand that this is an area where they can prosper, where they can succeed, where they can do well. This is a big cultural issue. And can I just make this point, Lee? There's a lot of money involved here, and there's investments into a new fund at the CSIRO. There are tax breaks for early stage investment in startups and venture capital and all of those things. But one of the big shifts we have to make is a cultural one. We have to think in a much more innovative way. We have to be prepared. When I say we, I mean the ABC, the government, every business. We've got to be prepared to do things differently tomorrow than we did yesterday, because the pace of change in the world in which we live is unprecedentedly fast, and so we have to treat all of that change in the world as creating great opportunities. That's why I keep on saying, and it's true, there's never been a more exciting time to be an Australian.
The plan will also make it easier for entrepreneurs to bounce back from bankruptcy, but the reason that some businesses go bankrupt is because they're not very good businesses. Do you run the risk here of artificially propping up failing ventures and mediocre business people?
People learn from failure or from lack of success. Our insolvency laws are very outdated. People have been calling for them to be reformed for many years. In fact, some of the changes here I proposed, and they weren't new then. I proposed back in 2009 when I was leader of the opposition, leader of the Liberal Party. One of the failings in our insolvency laws is that they don't do enough to promote business continuity. And this is one of the great strengths of the United States, for example, with their Chapter 11, so that when a business hits the wall from a financial sense, there is a much greater opportunity to restructure, bring in some new capital, change the management, and keep the show going on. And what that means is fewer jobs are lost, less money is lost, particularly by shareholders and subordinated creditors. And so it's very important. You see, again, key focuses of the government: agility, dynamism, enterprise, and all of these measures, over 20 of them in this agenda, are designed to enhance that.
You mentioned that people have been calling for that for years. Something else that business has been calling for years is a cut in the company tax rate. Wouldn't that be the best way to encourage businesses to spend money on innovation or collaboration with universities?
Well, it would be a way, but I think of course the problem is affordability. We don't a cut in 5% or 10%, and the corporate tax rate would be an enormous charge on the budget at the present time.
This government has previously told us, though, that doing that would stimulate growth, and so it would actually deliver money.
Well, it would stimulate growth, but it would have a cost to the budget, Lee. There's no question about that. But, you know, so affordability is very important.
I hesitate to ask this because I know you're not doing rule in, rule out, but that sounds like you'd be saying, well, I'm sorry, we don't have scope at the moment for a company tax cut.
We're looking, well, we've just had a company tax cut, of course, with smaller companies, but we're looking at every possible measure. But can I just say to you that in terms of the incentives to invest, there are quite a few measures here. You know, there are very generous tax credits, or tax offsets, I should say, for investing in startup companies. You know, 20% tax offset. So if for example you invested $1 million under our proposals, someone invested $1 million, or people collectively invested $1 million in a new business, they would get a 20% tax offset. So they could offset their tax liabilities from their other income to the tune of $200,000. That's a very big incentive. So suddenly, with this change, people that are starting a new business, a new innovative business, going to find it a lot easier to get money to get started. And it's that early stage of investment where there has been the market failure. There's plenty. If you want to raise $100 million or $200 million, there's plenty of avenues to get that, not least of which is the Australian Stock Exchange. But at the early stages where there has been failure. I mean, we've worked very carefully with the industry, with the innovation sector, to come up with these measures.
Many people in that sector and other sectors would tell you that the most critical thing for their business these days is a speedy internet. So why then do you continue to back a broadband network that relies on a decrepit copper network?
Why do you? But that is just, with great respect, that is just completely wrong. I mean,
it relies on copper to get from the node to the house, and that copper network's old.
But it doesn't matter whether it's old or young, as long as it works. Under the approach we are taking to the NBN, we will get the network completed 6 to 8 years sooner than it would be under Labor's proposed method, and $30 billion cheaper, or at less expense to the government, which makes broadband more affordable. I mean, it is remarkable. It doesn't matter how many facts are presented by the company on this issue,
but the company,
we still get the same.
But a leak of internal. I don't want to get bogged down in NBN because I'm going to get through a lot. But there's a leak of internal NBN documents to the Australian newspaper showing that the copper network is in such poor shape that the company has to spend tenfold what it had planned to spend to whip it into shape.
Well, that's simply not true.
All right, let's move on.
Anyway.